What
happened
in
sprint
qualifying
for
the
United
States
Grand
Prix? It has taken us 3 hours to get back from Austin, the track itself, to get back to downtown Austin where we're staying. And we have been trying to get back as quickly as possible to record our reaction. So apologies that it's a little bit delayed. This is what happens, Tommy, when we go outside and have some fun.
I know. How dare we? And it was a long trip back, little bit jet lagged. But
I'm on my last legs, bro. I'm cooked.
We might get some sass and opinions, so it might be fun.
I think this could be a good one. So let's begin before we even get into sprint qualifying with, I guess, the chatter that was going on prior to all the shenanigans of this weekend, and that was, of course, McLaren and repercussion gate. So, wow, that is one of the weirdest noises I've ever heard come out of your mouth. And I've heard some strange opinions from you. So to get everybody up to speed, if you've missed it, I don't know how you would have because it's all over social media, but the whole chat about repercussions after Lando Norris had a wheel bang with Oscar Piastri, and we've spoken about it, and we understood Oscar's viewpoint on it, didn't we, in Singapore, and the fact that he felt aggrieved because papaya rules means you're not allowed to touch a teammate, and they touched, and then there was no swap. So therefore not fair, and we've already spoken about how bad fairness can be when you try and level it all out. Well, of course, everything was about that in the interviews in the run-up to this weekend. And apparently, Lando is going to have repercussions, or the way it's been phrased by Lando, it sounded like there either is going to be repercussions. He even said there's going to be repercussions for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think people jumped on it immediately and thought that, Lando now has to... creating wild theories of like, Lando now must give Oscar preferential treatment in every single situation. I don't think it's that at all. I think it's very much McLaren doing their usual thing of trying to look like show themselves in the best possible light. And we've had essentially 2 weeks of this whole narrative of like, McLaren are favouring Lando over Oscar. This is really bad. All the press, all the memes, everything about it. And in my opinion, a very easy way to basically get rid of all that heat and flip that narrative a little bit is for just Lando to come out and say, yeah, there's been repercussions, but it's kind of like, but if there has, it's kind of, why didn't it happen at Singapore? It seems just a bit of a flaky way, and it's also really annoying because it's just like, just get on with it. It was a racing incident. It's so just... I'm so bored of it.
So
I'm not ridiculous.
I'm so bored of this chat. They're fighting for a world championship, and there's repercussions this, repercussions that. No, you can't race your teammate. Yeah, it's a bit... Like, why don't they just say, look, we've won the Constructors... Race now. Race. Yeah. Like, this literally what everybody wants to see.
If they collide, it doesn't matter now, really.
Question from P1 Patreon member Thimmer. What do you think are the consequences Piastri was referring to in an interview, and will it impact either the sprint or race this weekend? I don't think it's I don't think it's a case of like Lando will have to give Oscar a place back, or Lando will need to give him a slipstream in qualifying, or I just don't see it as that at all. Even though Oscar suggested, and this is why I just find it so boring, I just want to talk about the racing on action. But Oscar was speaking about the fact Lando has admitted fault in some way,
which is so bizarre because they claimed after the Singapore Grand Prix that it was fine. So like, it's so weird.
I am of the viewpoint that, firstly, I think McLaren should have just literally ignored any of these questions and just not got the drivers to even talk about repercussions. But we discussed it internally, moving on. But they've opened a little bit of a can of worms with this one. But I don't think it's really going to amount to anything because they will always go back to, and what we've already seen this year is that every single incident is unique. And there isn't going to be a like-for-like situation. There's not going to be another Singapore wheel bang where Lando was avoiding contact with Max Verstappen's rear. Everything is exactly so different.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think there is going to be this set rule now. It's just going to be basically like, it could be a case of, internally they've said, if that happens again, we will swap back. But the chances of that happening in exactly the same situation again is so rare that it will just be a case-by-case basis.
Anyway, shall we talk about some actual sprint qualifying? Go on then. Q1, or SQ1, I should say. The bottom 5 were Bearman, Colapinto, Sonoda, Ocon, and Bortoleto. Let's get into a question from P1 Patreon member Zingy13. Why was the queuing at the end of SQ1 so bad today? It's been a while since there's been such a gaggle of teams and drivers leaving it late and then fighting to reach the line in time. Will this lead to a rule change to try and stop it happening again in the future?
I think the only change that needs to happen is people need to get out the pits earlier and realise that, on paper or on the computers and everything that they've got on the pit wall, it's go out as late as possible. But when all 20 cars are trying to do the same thing, or in particular 6 cars that there were doing it all at the same time, you're going to leave less time. And it felt almost like they forgot that it was SQ1 and instead of Q1, where there's obviously a little bit more time, and they all just left it so late. And I know in theory that you going out as late as possible gives you better track conditions, but if you can't even set a lap, it's just absolutely farcical to end up in that situation, and it's far too risky. So I just think that it was embarrassing to watch.
Yeah, they don't want to go out too early because the track is not in its best condition. But I also think there is a factor, and I will say that myself and Tommy obviously at the track today, so we missed things we had to watch on a screen which was muted. We couldn't hear any commentary, so there are pieces that I'm sure we slightly miss when we're at the track. But my gauge is also that there's always shenanigans in the pits. There's always drivers just slowing down, stopping, waiting for cars to be 20 car lengths ahead of them before they then move. And I think this is just the nature of those two things coming together, where the drivers are trying to get a gap with everyone, and it's just,
and the gentleman's agreement all goes out the window when you're basically racing to the line, as we saw with Lawson and Sonoda.
Yeah. I mean, so many of them missed the line or were completely ruined laps before they'd even begun. Let's go to SQ2 then, where the 5 out were Antonelli, Hadjar, Gasly, Stroll, and Lawson. Of course, Kimi Antonelli missed out by 0.006 of a second, but did make a pretty big error, snatching, I think it was his front left brake, which of course, he lost far more than 0.006 of a second, which would have meant Hamilton would have gone out in Q2. We will get onto Ferrari because I've been loading up a little. I just want to share some emotions and feelings about how it was as a Ferrari fan, as a Charles Leclerc fan, watching qualifying in person. But back to Antonelli. It's slightly disappointing. Mercedes don't have the raw pace to challenge right at the front, but obviously Russell was able to make it through to Q3. But again, it's the sprint. It's not really that deep with Antonelli. I think as long as he bounces back for the main quali, he'll be okay.
Yeah, definitely. It's such a weird session, SQ2, because all these drivers that have gone out, I guess Antonelli should be higher up, but they're probably looking at it thinking like, oh, at least it's the sprint quali, because
which is a sad state of affairs, isn't it, with the format?
It is. And I'm sure we could do this all day, and I'll save it for sprint chat tomorrow. But there's definitely like a situation here where it just thinks like, well, what's the point for these runners? Because only the top 8 gets points. It's very impossible to overtake in these current regulations without pits, particularly without pit stops or anything, and different tires. So yeah, it's just kind of like, I would be absolutely amazed if any of these drivers get a point, because it's just not going to happen, is it?
Unlikely. Antonelli maybe, let's not give up before we've even got into the sprint. It's Kota, my guy. That's pretty much SQ2 done. Hulkenberg was flying in SQ2, and spoiler alert, he flew in Q3 as well. Let's head to it. The top 10 for tomorrow's sprint race is Verstappen, Norris, Piastri, Hulkenberg, Russell, Alonso, Sainz, Hamilton, Albon, and Leclerc. P1 Patreon member Lex Wakeman. Verstappen isn't going to do this, right? Right?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because he's obviously got pole position again. It's now... I still am on this thought process that it's too little too late.
What percent are you, Tommy?
4% now.
Oh, well, you were 3 before, exactly. So we are loading.
Exactly. It is frustrating in a weird way, because all I can think about is I wish there was like 8 races to go, not 6, because it is going to be a big ask. I wouldn't be. I know I'm the pessimistic Max fan all the time anyway, but I wouldn't be shouting from the rooftops, because it is a sprint race and it's going to be such minimal points. He needs to deliver that again in the main qualifying, because that's where you get a massive point, because Piastri, will get onto him later, is looking kind of worryingly off the pace from that. But even if Piastri is nowhere near the top 2, he's only going to lose a couple of points. So because of the sprint format. So for Verstappen, yes, his form is amazing, but I still just feel like it's unfortunately like a little bit too late in the fight, and he's definitely got a chance to do it, but it's too much.
He's winning it all, Tommy, and you need to just understand that. As 2 Max fans on the podcast now, you just need to really sort of just enjoy what you're about to witness in the next 6 races. 3 sprints as well, right? This isn't just 10-point swings in 6 races. You've also got 3 sprints where that is 24 points in total, Tommy. 8 times 3. And anything can happen in Grand Prix racing. P1 Patreon member Alan Enderpay, has Oscar's momentum gone? Tommy, you alluded to it ever so slightly with Piastri looking off the pace. Oscar said after quali as well that it was a scruffy lap. He just couldn't really put it all together. I am feeling like there is... I mean, it's hard to say, right? Because Singapore, Oscar was ahead of Lando until he got barged out of the way. And yes, he looked a little bit slower in race trim. But had that little wheel bang not happened, I think Oscar has a very good chance of beating Lando in Singapore. Do we then say that his momentum's gone? I think it's unfair to say that. I don't think he's in the mud. I don't think he's washed. Perhaps Baku has dented his confidence ever so slightly, knowing that if he does put a foot wrong, a massive point swing can happen. But that being said, if Lando wins every race from here to the end of the season, or even the majority of them, he's probably going to be champion. So back to the point, do I think his momentum's gone? I think the sort of Iron Man, Oscar. I'm so tired and so jet lagged, it's ridiculous. I just feel like maybe that's gone, but that's probably just a narrative within fans. Is that something that Lando or Max thinks about? No. But there are sort of chinks in the armour for sure. And I think Oscar, if you look back to last year, the end of the season was a struggle for him last year as well in terms of pace. So maybe it's just tracks he doesn't like as well.
I am going to repeat kind of what I said at the end of the last race podcast, where I said it's not complete panic stations. He's completely, throwing the title here, because it's definitely not. But if I was an Oscar Piastri fan, I'd be getting pretty nervous actually about it. And it's funny how, and this is reflected by this question and the 2 questions that we've just had now, is Max. There's all this talk about Max Verstappen. Can he do this? And I know it's an unpopular opinion because people completely write him off, but I really do think Lando could very easily win this championship, and I'm starting to think more and more that he may well do, because he doesn't have a massive points gap to kind of catch up on with Piastri. And since Baku, Lando is chipping away every single race at that lead, and it's coming down again. And he doesn't have like 60 points to overturn. It's what, like 22, was it?
It's 22, yeah.
22. So it's much less. And I don't think Oscar's form's like completely gone and he's in the mud. But having 3 races in a row where Lando's taken points out of Oscar's lead, and now to go into a sprint qualifying session and him be 0.3 off Lando, off pole,
yeah.
and 2/10 off Lando. It is concerning
for sure. I think you also have to give Lando his commendations, don't you? Because as much as we think, Oscar's throwing it, Oscar might be feeling the pressure of the championship, it could well just be that Lando is doing a better job and really starting to feel at one with the car again, because he has struggled at times this year. So yeah, it's going to be a fascinating one. I think if we get to sort of under 20 points again coming out of this weekend, then again it's very much looking at the moment like Lando could close the gap. Let's move away from McLaren now and head to Sauber. Gavin Curley 90 asks, how good was the Hulk to get 4th?
Very, very good. Very good indeed. He just looked absolutely on it all day, really. I don't know what's gone on today, because Bortoleto was, unlucky in qualifying, but then he had a lap deleted for track limits as well. So it's probably not reflective of his pace. But that being said, Hulkenberg has just looked really, really strong. And I don't think it's necessarily that Sauber are suddenly like really, really quick this weekend. I just think Hulkenberg has done an absolutely brilliant job. And when he got second in FP1, it was kind of like, oh, okay, that's cool, but it's not representative. Like it's him maybe on a low fuel run or whatever. I don't think would have possibly thought maybe even top 8 or something. So for him to get 4th is absolutely unbelievable. Like, what a performance! And yeah, top Ferrari engine.
Wow. Okay. I was about to say, come on, Tommy. Do you remember when we were sat there? Q3 was starting, and I said, I smell a Hulk top 5. Did I not say that?
You did say that.
I did say that. A broken clock is right twice a day. But yes, Hulkenberg. As you say, he was on it the entire day. It wasn't a stroke of luck. And I think that's the beauty of the sprint format as well. Less practice can allow for things like this to happen, where a team and a driver can just get a setup right that they feel good in the car, and then you don't have the teams that you would expect to maybe be in that top 10. The V-Carbs, I think, is one scalp from this quali session. And that's what I like to see, is that slight unpredictability. And yeah, Hulk, brilliant. The first time he's got into the top 10 in qualifying the entire year, and it's in sprint quali. So well done, Hulk. Hopefully he can score some points tomorrow. P1 Patreon member Mikey B. How much worse can it get for Ferrari from here? Look, I think I actually got to my end with this now. It was quite frankly depressing watching Ferrari today. They were on the back foot, scraping through every single session. Yes, they both got through to SQ3. Whoop-de-doo. I do not watch Ferrari and Charles Leclerc to scrape through every quali session. They built a car for this year that promised big things. They were so close to winning the Constructors last year. And I'm watching Charles Leclerc 20th in free practice because he's had gearbox issues and he was having a lot of trouble with the car. And it's just, frankly, not good enough. It's been an absolute disaster of a season. It's been a year since Charles Leclerc last won. Of course, an amazing time last year when he pulled off that brilliant win. But they have looked, apart from once or twice this year, just so lackluster. It's hard to watch. People. My dad even messaged me when Charles just scraped through to SQ3. He's like, "Oh, so close to a heartbroken son." I'm like, "Dad, I am so far gone. If Charles was knocked out in SQ2, I couldn't really care, because it's at that point now where I'm like, but we're not fighting for anything. Okay, if Charles gets through, he qualified 10th. I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, we're being out-qualified by a Sauber that's up in 4th, and this is Ferrari.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, Leclerc nearly got knocked out in SQ1. If there hadn't have been the kind of all those cars together and they'd have actually got their laps in, I think Charles would have been out. It was that bad. And, before we were obviously watching at the track, and before the session, they actually played a replay of last year's race. Some highlights, and what an insane thing to think about, that this time last year Charles Leclerc's just won the Grand Prix. Ferrari are looking at going for the constructors title, and I think at this point, kind of towards the end of the season, I think Charles Leclerc had scored as many points in the kind of final few races as Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. And you think, okay, going into the new season, surely, Ferrari have got a great chance here. And instead, fast forward a year later, and they're barely making it through into, they're behind Williams, who everyone was saying, Carlos Sainz has been demoted to them. They're behind Williams, and they're not even the fastest Ferrari engined cars. It is an absolute joke. And, I can sit here and be smug and say, "Oh, look, I said that. Why did they change their car?" But it has to be spoken about. Like, why on earth going into one year before a new regulation change, when you had a car that on its day could be the best car on the grid, completely changed the whole thing. To me, it's just absolutely insane.
And they've brought specs of that last year's car onto the car for this year at certain tracks, because they've clearly gone, wow, actually that last year's car was pretty good. Let's go back to that. And I'm concerned as to what 2026 and beyond will bring if they have put a hell of a lot of resource into maybe winning something this year. And we've had all these talks about
Charles saying he's not even confident about 2026 and stuff now. It's just, it's not looking
good. We're cooked, chat. We really are. And finally, I think it's worth mentioning, firstly, also Fernando Alonso did a very good job. I'm surprised you haven't spoken about or said his name the entire podcast. And of course, Carlos Sainz, a fellow Spaniard who missed a little bit of free, I say a little bit, I think he missed half of free practice one with an issue with his car, and easily chucks it in SQ3 and outqualifies Albon. I mean, that's a pretty good job.
Yeah, it's really great to see, because I think Carlos is finding his groove now, it seems. And we said the whole time in his struggles that we know he's a better driver than this, and it kept going on and on and on, and it went on far, like way longer than I thought it would. I thought it would maybe only take him a few races, and we got to goodness knows how many races, and he was still getting knocked out quite early in qualifying and going, "What? This is not the Carlos we know." But something has changed, and he's found his confidence again, and he's doing a brilliant job.
So well done to Carlos, and well done to Williams for a double SQ3 appearance. And that is it. We are done. We are dusted. I cannot wait for my head to hit the pillow in my room. Not your room, Tommy, sadly. What are your final thoughts, sir? Final
thoughts are that just looking forward to the sprint tomorrow, and I'm sure there'll be... I think there'll be a little bit of a sprint rant coming tomorrow, because unless it provides the greatest race, we need to have some serious
talks. To talk about the sprint. Now, one thing I want to add as well is that we are going to be at the AT&T garage at Distribution Hall in downtown Austin. I believe it's 2 p.m. that we're doing our live podcast there. It's free entry, so if you're not going to the race, into quali and obviously the sprint race, then come down to that. You can come and see us live. There's a Q&A as well, so it'll be a lot of fun. And that's it. We are done, and we will see you actually as well. We're going to be live streaming tomorrow, so as much as we're in Austin, we will be live on Hopefully. Twitch and YouTube. Fingers crossed if we can figure out all the logistics. So I promised you something that might not be able to be delivered, but just pray. We are trying so hard, honestly, I promise. Okay, right, see you soon. Bye.